Lastly, a leading light of stage, film, and radio, the inimitable Ronald Frankau.
It all started in May. I evacuated to a country town and taken a small house and started living there with a housekeeper. I mean an old lady who kept house, and one maid who definitely wasn't. Well, at least not by me. Well, after I'd settled down, you know, sampled the locals and the yokels, and one barmaid who asked me whether I was walking out, as there were some lovely ones, meaning walks, I took one into a wood. Now, for walks like this, I'd bought a second-hand Harris tree, and the smell of moss and me was everywhere. It was lovely, beautiful in fact, but rather lonely until I met her. She was an aged thing with a crooked stick and a cowl and collecting firewood, although it was May. She must have scented or sensed my presence, for suddenly she cackled at me 8 magic words. "Have you a drop of gin, old dear?" Well, it happens when I go for walks in woods, I always carry a bottle of the stuff, remembering that old family song, "Gin a body, seen a body," coming through the rye, and you never know when you will, and this time I had. So I gave it her, and I said, "Take it all, you poor soul," and I gave her the hooch. Well, suddenly there was a flash, I think, and the dear old soul had turned into something rather younger, with a Victorian figure, and I thought she was very dramatic and wondered how pantomimes would do, and she cackled at me again. "Thanks for your kindness, you poor fish. As your reward, please have one wish." Well, I thought I had a humour, but I didn't know what to wish for. I mean, I've oodles of money. I get my own girls. I don't like them wished on me, and I've no ambition. Well, Tempest was fugiting. I thought I ought to make up my mind, so I wished. I wished for an adoring elephant, I said, and suddenly, in front of me and slightly above me, was an adoring elephant. She had disappeared. Well, I knew I wasn't drunk, so I thought I must be balmy, and I began walking home. The elephant, whom I'd already christened Fairy, wasn't going to have any of this. He took me in his trunk and put me on his back, most uncomfortable, I assure you, especially that I'd always ignored the newspaper ads and never thrown it away. Well, of course, everybody was rather surprised to see us returning to the village like that. I'd gone out for a lone walk, and here I was with an elephant. But although I met the vicar's loveliest daughter on the way home, I was unfortunately quite unmolested. Well, I got Fairy through the garden gates and parked him in the front garden and went inside the house to think. Every now and then, Fairy put his trunk through the window to see if I smelt all right, I suppose. After all, I was his best friend now. The housekeeper came in and gave notice. A very superior landlord rang up and cancelled my tenancy. The police asked for my elephant-keeping license. Evacuated children returned to look. The vicar called without his loveliest daughter, and the barmaid called without being asked. And I said to her, "What am I going to do?" The problem was answered without her help. It was a sudden and most unexpected air raid warning. I had no shelter. The housekeeper, the maid, and I dashed out and got under Fairy. An HE exploded in the next field. Fairy almost simultaneously lay down with his back towards the blast. We were safe. Well, that started it. In a few days, whenever alert was sounded, anybody near dived under my elephant, and 10 of us slept there at night. I met the vicar's loveliest daughter like that. We sat under the best end of neck. Well, after all, it was my privilege to be that end, and we talked ourselves into an ultimate marriage. Well, there's little more to tell. As a matter of fact, one night, well, it was early dawnier, really, poor Fairy received a direct hit on her poor back, and as she sagged groundwards and we scrambled from beneath her, there was a mighty flash, I think, and she'd disappeared. We reclined there looking at the crater, and suddenly I heard the Victorian voice from the wood tinkling at me again. "You've saved yourself from a terrible mess by carrying gin for poor folk in distress. Here's wishing you luck, which you'll have, I foretell, a goblin's goodbye and a fairy's farewell." And that goes for me, too.